Hello, everyone. This is Franklin Salis, and we are the Reluctant Hams. I have Tracy Williams Barnett to my right. Hey, Trey.
Hey, boo.
How are you?
Good.
All right, moving on. And then we have the great Gigi Lou. How are you, Gigi?
Doing great.
You made it in from the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Always from the Commonwealth. Yes, I trekked all the way by foot,
Oh,
We
barefoot.
are so appreciative.
yeah. Well, thank you for joining us in a non-state. And we have a what's in this coffee? We have a long-awaited special guest
Oh my
here.
goodness, we do.
We are super excited. This is the man that has affected each one of our lives
Woo!
individually in one way or another.
In the most positive way
In the
possible.
most positive way.
I'm so sorry.
We have Carlos Garcia with us. Hey, Carlos.
Yay.
Hey guys, how are you?
Ooh,
Carlos
to be here.
Garcia
Radio
with
voice.
the Ang Garcia team in Washington, D.C., DMV.
Yes.
Like, I think the most famous team in the DMV. Like, with the best.
I'll go with that. I'll
Yeah.
go with that.
I
Yeah,
mean-
seriously. Like, so well known and with the.
Highly regarded.
Highly regarded.
I think
with
my mother
great
would agree with that.
representation.
Yeah,
100%.
of course. Absolutely.
It's a good-
I
That
hope
was
so.
actually her plug-in, by the way.
It's a,
Sure it was.
It's a good pedigree of a team.
Thank you.
So, welcome to our show. We, like I mentioned before, we have chatted about you in many different ways, quoted you many different times, and we're excited to have you on the show. We're just going to have a cool, cute, and relevant conversation about real estate, about you specifically.
Maybe a little bit about selling Sunset, guys. We just started. I just got to throw in some plugins there. But I want to say that as I was driving here from the Commonwealth, I started to get really nervous.
Why?
I'm never nervous for our recordings, like ever. Even maybe the first couple. But when we have guests on, like excited, but like feels
Natural.
natural.
Yeah.
But like having Carlos on, it's like next level for me. I think
I
it's
agree.
because I hold you in such a high regard that I want to deliver. And so I was like, what am I going to talk about? Like, what is he going to think?
Right.
And I was like, calm down. It's Carlos. He's your buddy. Like, you've known him forever. I mean, I think I've known you for 11 years.
Has it been that long?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's been a minute since we've met. And I mean, we've stayed in touch all of these years. And I mean, you still amaze me every time.
Well, it's
Oh,
very, very sweet of you.
Oh.
that's beautiful.
I'm out of words. Let's focus on the real estate.
He was like, I'm getting blushing here.
I
Like,
am,
This is
I
a
am.
little bit too much for
Uh,
me.
So, let's do a little catch up.
yeah, let's do
A
that.
little catch up. Tracy, what you been up to? I saw you doing King Kong with your
Qigong.
Qigong with your
Yes.
with your hubby.
It's very fun. I'm doing my little soulful Sundays and my
Yeah.
miracle mornings. And so this is a new addition. It's just a way of meditating and finding your inner peace.
Okay.
And so there's going to be a movement. So watch out. You'll
Alright.
join because you're
Scared.
part of that.
Mm-mm.
Yes, you are.
No meditation for
You
me.
had your mom doing it on Mother's Day.
I did. And we filmed that. Well, I just filmed her, but I would have loved to have filmed all three of us just to show like the generational aspect of it and us doing the flow and the movements. So Qigong is about your wellness. So Tai Chi, right? That's
Yes.
more
Mhm.
for
Yes, that looks
martial art and
that looks like my
you know,
speed.
right. But it's a form of protection. Well, Qigong is for your inner being, your inner wellness, health and wellness. So each movement focuses on a particular area of your body or organs
Hmm.
to move that energy, that stagnation that's in your body. And so you feel really good and rejuvenated afterwards.
Hmm.
It's amazing.
Is it slow?
It's super slow.
Mhm.
And
very
it's about
calculated.
mindfulness, about like your breathing
and movements, slow movements. And each movement is focused on a particular organ or part of your body.
What organ did you work on this weekend?
We did a bone marrow, moving the energy through your bone marrow. Yeah, it sounds
Uh-huh.
crazy, but
Okay.
It works. You have
That
to
re-
try it.
Can't
That
wait.
reminds me of the first date I had with the vegan, and I ordered bone marrow on our first date.
Same.
No, you didn't.
I did.
The same.
Yeah.
Because I was mad at him for not booking reservations and then not telling me he was a vegan when I chose a place. I chose
Oh,
an Italian
man.
place and that had almost no vegetarian options.
That's right.
And he's like, I'm a vegan. And I'm like, okay, I'm ordering bone marrow just because I can.
Absolutely.
And you can.
And you cannot.
That sounds aggressive. So you were not anticipating a second date.
That was not Brad. No.
So what did you do, Franklin?
What do you mean this weekend?
Yeah.
I had a busy weekend. I did 4 open houses.
Oh my gosh.
For them. And
4 of them babies.
for them. And this is sort of like gets into our conversation, which I texted with Gigi over the weekend about it. I was like, this is miserable. Because I've been back and forth to New York with, the recent losses in my family, and I've just been back and forth and not able to do what I love to do, which are the open houses. So I like, let me double down on this weekend and do 4. One, it was like the nicest weekend in DC.
Oh my goodness, right.
2, 3 out of the 4 open houses that I did were 0 people.
No.
And there was a big race, right? Wasn't there a race? Am I thinking
In
of a
Capitol Hill.
race? Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it was also it's the weekend before Memorial Day weekend.
And graduation.
No, I
And
actually thought it was going to
graduation.
be a really popular weekend because the weekend before was Mother's Day weekend. So you follow up the following and everyone goes looks for houses, right?
Well, guess what? That didn't happen.
It was dead. Darn.
I have a couple of things to say about that. First of all,
I love it.
kudos to you for just doing it.
Yeah.
I was disappointed by the weekend as well. I was out there banging my head against real estate
Yeah.
Saturday and Sunday. I
Were
think-
you disappointed and surprised or just disappointed?
Well, not shocked.
Okay.
I guess because I'm such an optimist, I was a little surprised,
Mm-hmm.
but I was worried going into it
Got it.
about the possibility that
Mhm.
it'd be a dud of a weekend.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, here we are in May,
yeah.
Mhm.
definitely prime time.
Yeah.
We can
Right.
argue about exactly when prime time starts and when it
Yeah.
ends in the spring, but by May, we're in prime time
Yeah.
for sure.
It's moving.
And the weather was great, so
Yeah.
that should have brought people out. It's true, there were some events. There was also like a porch front thing,
Yes.
Yeah.
porch hopping thing
Yeah.
at Adams
Yeah.
Morgan.
Mhm.
And then there was a Bloomingdale Community Day too.
That's right.
And
So a
that
good
was
day for
huge.
those kinds of things. But the market's been like a butterfly, sort of fluttering around.
Mhm.
Looks like it's going in one direction, then head fakes you, it heads in the other, and yet back up again. And so, I think that the buyer energy out there is that butterfly fluttering around and not really
Mm.
giving us a target that's easy to understand.
Yeah.
The
Do
market
you-
is like a butterfly. I like that.
Do you think that the motherfly
The
Careful now.
The mudder, that
Because it does
mudderfly.
feel like I'm a
Butterfly.
Not that mudderfly.
that might be a new hashtag for us guys.
Butterfly.
That's this market, a mudderfly.
It's a
It is.
butterfly.
Do you think it's because of interest rates, or do you think that this is a new market and new buyer that we're dealing with, like kind of long term?
Oh, if it's a new buyer we're dealing with, I'm open to that possibility, but that's not a theory I'm working with right now. I have this approach to the market. I always need a theory,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking for inputs to validate or invalidate the theory. I'm talking to people about it to find out if it's similar to their theory, and I'm really just trying to get to the answer. I'm not married to a particular theory. If a better idea sort of emerges, but I need a framework personally. The way I operate, actually, in almost everything I do,
Mhm.
my real estate activities, dealing with friends and family, my work with nonprofits. I always need sort of a framework. So I'm trying to analyze the market and figure out what kind of market it is. Do we have a new type of buyer? I'm not sure I'm ready to say that, but I do think it's the rates. In combination with a number of things, some of which are a little more clearly linked,
Mhm.
like reticence related to uncertainty
Yeah.
for sure around the budget negotiations, debt ceiling,
Mhm.
and also the war in Ukraine,
Yep.
which has been around for a while now as a factor. And then, of course, the banking situation.
Sure.
And credit is getting tighter
Yeah.
for sure in, I think, the commercial space. And I think maybe we're starting to see that a little bit on the residential side.
Mhm.
Well, notes
Um,
are going to start coming due for these
mhm.
commercial spaces. So that's going to be a really big impact on what we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, and like I always say to my friends and colleagues in the real estate sales business, you know, human beings like to put off difficult decisions. We are literally designed to do that.
Right.
A real estate decision's a pretty difficult and
Yep.
big one, and we as humans don't need more reasons to be reticent or reluctant. And right now, you know, one sort of abates and another sort of pops its head up.
Hmm.
You know, a new one emerges and the old one falls away. But like, we're just not getting a nice clean slate lately where people can all sort of go, yeah, I feel confident. There's a consensus that rates are going to drop.
Right.
We all talk about marry the house, date the rate,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And then the consumer looks at us and goes, yeah, but for how long? Like, how long do I have to date this, you know, rate I really don't like? And we'd like to be able to say, not very long at all. You'll get right out of it quick. Well, you'll refi. You know, and so we need that consensus around even rates dropping in the near future. If they drop now materially, people will jump in the market.
Mhm.
That would be great, but I'm not even asking for that. I'm asking for the thing before that, where there's a growing consensus that rates are going to drop so that people can listen to marry the house, date the rate, and go, yeah, I buy that. That's a reasonable thing to do. I get in early now
Mhm.
before the rates drop and the market rises, and that's good.
Right.
I can tolerate that rate for just a little while, and I've started to put a beginning and an end around my best and worst case scenario. I can
Mhm.
imagine that. I think it just feels too much like that butterfly that people can't quite nail down what's going to happen. Then you throw in these other things that add these feelings of uncertainty. Again, the three I just mentioned.
Yeah,
What
and
was
we
it?
had that recently too. Like we had like that slight dip at the end of the winter, and it did drive up the market. Like we
Mhm.
saw that uptick. It wasn't for very long,
No.
but it was there. I tried to bank on it as long as I could, and then yeah, it fluttered away.
It really did.
And that's, I think, the narrative that a lot, because, you know, the one open that I did that was, it was brand new, came on market Thursday, first open was Saturday, and I was holding it, and I had three groups that walked in. And because there was only three that came through, I was really interested in what their motivation was for even coming out. And every single person was, you know, I'm looking very early
Hmm.
because I'm anticipating rates dropping.
So they're waiting.
So they're waiting. And the narrative has been interest rates, inflation. And so I usually share when I'm doing open houses, I share it with my friend group to kind of like spread it out as much as I can. And one was priced, you know, over $1 million. And the response to that was, well, good luck with that person who has to pay the interest on that mortgage.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I was taken aback a little bit because that is the knee-jerk reaction to seeing something that was beautiful. It's a beautiful property. Um, that was the knee-jerk reaction to someone who could be a competitor in that real estate space.
So do you think that buyers today are spoiled? In my opinion, I hate to say this to all the buyers who are listening, but the talking point is over the last 50 years, the average interest rate was 8%, right? So it's still a better rate than it was on the average. So with that said, you know, why the hesitation? My personal opinion is that buyers are not educated enough. They don't know how to properly buy for their particular situation. And
They're-
that's part of the
They're-
problem.
They were dating Brad Pitt for a year and a half, and then they got a call from John Goodman, and they're like, "Let's hang out." And they're like, "Well, John Goodman's still a good person to date, but I was dating Brad Pitt for like 2
Right.
years."
I had it good.
I mean, you're good,
and I
but
can
you're
get
not
that
Brad.
again.
Yeah,
And it
it's
was
true.
15 years almost, by the way. You know, it was a
And they'll
long
never
time.
get
Yeah.
Brad again.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to deal with that shock on just the outright delta.
Yeah.
You know, between
It
Pitt
was
and
a
Goodman.
big jump. It was a big, like
It's-
all of a sudden
it's the
jump.
Right.
That was the difference versus it being gradual.
The John Goodman
Right.
effect.
Yes. So yeah, there is some basis for believing that people will adjust and get used to it. But I think when the shock is that brutal, it maybe takes a little longer for the trauma to wear off. Let's call it trauma. Because I think for some of those buyers, especially the ones who really, really were thinking about getting it done last year or early this year, to just have it run up on them like that, the cost of money, boy, was that rough, right?
Very.
But it's true that time heals all wounds. So we will get people returning for that reason, that they're over it, they're accepting it. But then there's these things that cause uncertainty, and the pace of the market doesn't necessarily feel super fast, so the market itself isn't prompting you. I mean, there are some categories. I know all of us have been involved in multiple offer situations recently. So there are some categories where your adrenaline is pumping, and you do realize you actually have to get on with it if you're ever going to get into the market. But there are also a number of other, I think, segments where it's so slow
Right.
that it's sort of lulling the buyer population into this slowness.
Yeah, I mean, there are very few motivations for a lot of buyers and sellers right now. So I wouldn't say it's our job to create the motivations, but it's our job to have people not fearful about taking a step that they feel like is good for their lives. Their motivations for buying a home or selling a home should always be, I mean, financial is a big part of it, but also like, what do you need to move for your family? Do you need to expand? Do you need to downsize? Like, we need to have our clients keep those motivations in mind and not hold up their lives because they're scared of jumping in. Because there are so many ways to tackle these issues. Like, I mean, you can say, yeah, it's true. Like, you locked in a really low interest rate, 5 years ago, and it's hard to buy something maybe exactly what you want. But if you take a certain angle with it, then you could benefit both ways by selling your home for maybe more because it's still highly desirable now, and not to let go of that. And then also maybe, yeah, you do have a higher interest rate, but then maybe because you've sold your home, you have a lot of equity to put down at that moment. So and then you don't have competition. So you don't need to like go all in. So there's so many
right.
angles to it. So how do you like coach your buyers and your sellers through this market?
Well, part of it hinges on their situation, like you described, their ability to move forward in their lives, and helping them focus on that is good for them, because this is about you, and if it's about you, then let's do this. But the other piece of it is the investment piece, and there's a couple of things that the longer I do this kind of work, and I think whatever work I might have found myself doing, there's certain things that come with age. I'm going to sound like the corny old guy in a minute, but there's two things recently that have really emerged for me. One of them relates to what we're talking about, and that's making a call with regard to the market. Like, I acknowledge that it would be malpractice to convince people I have a crystal ball.
Exactly. Yes.
But I want increasingly to step out, step up, and tell them where I think the market's headed, because I feel like I know. I feel like there is some possibility I'm wrong. That's true too. I don't own that crystal ball, but that there's a pretty high likelihood that I'm right. And I've been looking at this long enough and seeing the patterns. And so the thing I'm saying to people is that I believe that when the rates are dropped materially, let's say we get into the mid fours to mid fives, I think that that's the kind of range that will really move a lot of people off the sidelines. That due to the lack of inventory, I think pricing is going to spike. So I'm trying to help them acquire a property, the same property, for what I think will be less money now than just in a little while.
Yeah.
Or in just a little while. The other thing that I do more and more that doesn't really relate to exactly what we're talking about now, but maybe we can get to it later, is like get spiritual about the real estate.
Yes.
Like, the older I get, the more I do this. Maybe it's not age, maybe it's just time in and out of houses and conversations, is just the outright beauty, the ephemeral qualities of a property. I use the word spirit a lot. You should pay for spirit, because people will, if you feel it and this house is moving you, people will pay you for it on the back end when you're selling it, or if you need to rent it.
And those are the homes that get the multiple bids, right? Like, there's just something very special about them and unique, and even something that you can't describe that just it draws you in. And those are things that new construction can't just build and fabricate. Like, it's very unique.
That's a lot of what I was just thinking as you were talking about that, because so many people have flipped and renovated homes, and after a while, you can almost predict what you're going to see when you walk into the home.
Oh my gosh.
You could almost predict that you're going to see
How very DC.
I hate it.
a black
I
handle
hate
for the kitchen.
Like, ooh,
Groundbreaking.
a nice white shaker cabinet with a quartz countertop. Whoa.
Where'd you get that gray? I've never seen it before.
Exactly.
So it's you know, you have to, and I was talking to someone who she does renovations and flips, and she's flipped about 60 properties in her career, and she was talking about picking cabinets, and she's like, yeah, I'm just going to do white or gray, and I'm like, throw a green in there. And she's like, well, that's not, I have to appeal to
A broader
a broad,
mass of
but
buyers.
I said
yeah.
some of the houses that I remember buyers getting the most excited about were the ones that did not look exactly like the others. The ones that had a green.
You said green, not purple. So
No,
yeah,
right.
exactly.
Listen,
That's the difference.
I'm saying with taste.
Yes,
Of
that's
course.
what it's with
That's
taste.
it. That's the magic word.
We're from New York,
But
all right?
But everyone thinks that they have taste, especially all developers, which
Yeah.
they do not.
I have a colleague who she flips properties, and she actually got the special at Lowe's and Floor and Decor, and so every bathroom has different tile and all these mismatch patterns and colors, and it won't sell, and she doesn't understand why it won't sell. Well, it's because you picked out the wrong type of product for the
Ugly.
home.
She picked ugly things.
Yeah.
Or
Ugly.
Yeah.
maybe she had too much taste.
Yeah.
Just taste everywhere.
Exactly.
That's that's another thing we have to talk about. Your delivery in
Right.
you can make something that
Franklin's like, it's ugly.
I'm like, it's ugly. He's like, you have a little too much taste.
Yeah. You're ahead of everyone else.
My first listing appointment was with Carlos. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, my friend. It was with a friend of mine, and I
In
remember
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
Those were my first two listings.
Yep.
And I remember Carlos said, "Yeah, so before we get ready, we're gonna have to edit down a little bit." And I'm like, "Wow, that's such a good way to say clean the
The
goddamn place
home?
up."
Okay, right. Right. I was gonna say the home or what you were wearing.
The
Yeah.
home. The home.
The home.
Franklin's giving me a
Franklin
look.
looked great. He looked great.
The home.
That wasn't it.
Well,
Just checking.
that's very Carlos. I mean, very, very dapper, very educated, and very polite. One of the many lessons that I've taken away from being your first showing assistant
Yes, you
ever
were.
for
Yes,
the
you were.
team. You really threw me out there, Carlos.
I did.
I love you for it, but I hated you then.
Oh no!
No, I never hated
look at
you.
But look at you now.
Right.
Oh my
Look
God,
at you
look at you.
I
now.
have it.
You're-
I have graduated
You're a boss bitch.
to
Ooh, that's
a
right.
level.
You're a
But
boss lady.
I remember that, and I think about you almost every single time I write an email. So that's like pretty big.
Whoa.
Is to always say please and thank you for everything. And I remember it was a lesson that I learned, writing emails as a showing assistant, scheduling things. And I remember you took me aside and you were like, you're doing great, very encouraging. But whenever you write for any request, even the smallest things, always say please and thank you.
Absolutely.
In every email. And
Absolutely.
I do it every single time. And I think of you.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love it. And, that's a small thing, but it's applied so often, or you fail to apply it. I don't know. I receive even like a dear friend will be like, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Can you play tennis at 5? Let me know.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's so
Yeah,
harsh.
it's
jarring,
How
yeah.
about please let me know? I mean, just a little please in
or
front
at
of it.
least add an emoji or something,
Something,
right?
right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Soften this a little bit.
The other
So
thing about it
demanding.
is if you think about the word please a lot, as a salesperson who needs to keep conversations moving forward, just let me know, you guys, let me know,
Mhm.
in a few days, if putting please let me know at the end of every email isn't a good idea. I think it is. Because what you're basically saying is ball's in your court. Now
Right.
send it back to me.
Right.
So I rarely am communicating with a client without my last several words being, please let me know, period. Thanks, comma, Carlos.
Hmm.
And I say it this way because I dictate.
Right.
Thanks, comma, Carlos. My middle child, who's a bit of a heckler, walks around the house going, "Thanks, come Carlos," because he sees me dictating.
He's like the walking circle from Netflix.
Well, I told you guys that story about how I left a voicemail for a client, but I actually dictated it.
Oh yes, I've done that too.
And I was like, I mean, I thought it was the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel too embarrassed about it, but it happens. But
It definitely does.
dictation does work very well when you're in a pinch.
I do it all the
For sure.
time.
Yes.
Although
Saves
I'm
a
a
lot of time.
very, very fast with my thumbs. Well, please let me thank you for joining us for our episode. We are continuing this in part 2.
Yeah.
So
We got to hear the journey of Carlos.
yeah, we got to hear like
Oh
the
my.
background. We've heard smart Carlos, but now we need to hear like deep Carlos.
Mm.
All right.
The
Thank
spiritual Carlos.
you. I
and his
really appreciate
journey.
this opportunity to be with the 3 of you. You know, I love all 3 of you. We've had highs and lows together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Each of us, right? All
Yeah.
of us. So thank you.
Our pleasure. All right. Stay
Absolutely.
tuned for the next one.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.